Picture two men. Same age, same city. Same street, actually. They're neighbors. The first man is a physician. He drives a new Mercedes. His house is in the most expensive zip code in the county. His wife shops at the right stores. His kids go to private school. When you see him pull into his driveway, you think, that man is wealthy. The second man is a pest exterminator. He drives a 7-year-old Chevy pickup. His house is modest, 3 bedrooms, nothing special. His wife clips coupons. His kids went to public school. When you see him in his driveway, you think, he's doing okay, I guess. Now let me tell you their financial situations. The physician earns $340,000 a year. He has $180,000 in investments. He owes $450,000 on his mortgage, carries 2 car loans, and has about $9,000 in credit card debt. If he lost his income tomorrow, he could survive for about 4 months. The pest exterminator earns $95,000 a year. He has $2.4 million in investments. His house is paid off. He has no debt of any kind. If he stopped working tomorrow, he could live comfortably for over 25 years. Who is wealthy? Not the one who looks wealthy. This is the central revelation of one of the most important books about money ever written. And 2 researchers named Thomas Stanley and William Danto spent 20 years proving it. The book is called The Millionaire Next Door, and it will permanently change how you see wealth and how you see yourself. In the 1970s, Thomas Stanley was a young marketing professor trying to understand wealthy consumers. He wanted to know what they bought, what they drove, where they lived, so businesses could sell to them. He set up focus groups in upscale neighborhoods. He arranged for expensive food, fine wines, a setting designed to make wealthy people comfortable. And then the wealthy people showed up, and they were nothing like he expected. They didn't talk about where they vacationed. They were suspicious of the fancy setup. Several of them complained about the cost of the food and suggested it was wasteful. Many of them drove to the focus group in older domestic cars. One of them, worth several $1 million, spent most of the session talking about finding a good deal on lawn fertilizer. Stanley was confused, then fascinated, then obsessed. He spent the next 2 decades doing what almost nobody in finance had done before. He didn't study the stock market or investment theory. He studied actual millionaires, real people, in their real homes, with their real financial statements in front of him. He and his colleague, William Danto, surveyed over 1,000 millionaires and conducted extensive personal interviews with hundreds more. They asked about income, net worth, lifestyle, spending habits, how they built their wealth, what their parents were like, what they did for a living. And what they found shattered almost every assumption the financial world had about wealthy people. The first and most important finding: most millionaires in America don't live in Beverly Hills or Manhattan. They don't drive Ferraris or wear Rolex watches. They live in ordinary neighborhoods. They drive ordinary cars. And their neighbors often have no idea they have millions sitting in investment accounts. Stanley had a phrase for the opposite type, the people who look wealthy but aren't. He called them big hat, no cattle. It comes from an old Texas saying about someone who dresses like a rancher but doesn't actually own any land. And in Stanley's research, big hat, no cattle described a shocking proportion of high-income, high-spending Americans. Let's look at what he actually found. When most people imagine a millionaire, they imagine a finance executive, a tech entrepreneur, a celebrity, someone whose income is so high that wealth is almost automatic. Here's what Stanley's research actually found. The most common occupations among American millionaires were not bankers or lawyers or executives. They were business owners, farmers, engineers, accountants, teachers who started early, small contractors, plumbers, electricians, pest controllers. Ordinary people with ordinary incomes who quietly, consistently, over decades, spent less than they earned and invested the difference. And here's the flip side that should make every high-income professional deeply uncomfortable. Doctors, among the highest earners in America, are dramatically underrepresented in the millionaire category relative to their income. So are attorneys. So are corporate executives with six-figure salaries. Why? Because high income and wealth are not the same thing. Stanley found that many of the highest earners in America are also the highest spenders. Their lifestyle expands to match and often exceed their income. The expensive house in the right neighborhood, the luxury car, the private school tuition, the country club membership, the vacations that need to look a certain way on social media. They earn a lot, they spend a lot, and after decades of earning, they have surprisingly little to show for it. He called these people under-accumulators of wealth, UAWs, and he contrasted them with the group that appeared in his data over and over, the prodigious accumulators of wealth, PAWs. The PAW versus UAW formula. Stanley created a simple formula to tell which type you are. Take your age, multiply it by your gross annual income, divide by 10. That number is what your net worth should be if you've been building wealth at an average rate. If your actual net worth is twice that number or more, you're a PAW, a prodigious accumulator of wealth. If it's half that number or less, you're a UAW, an underaccumulator. Let me make this real. Take a 45-year-old earning $120,000 a year. 45 times 120,000 equals $5,400,000. Divide by 10, $540,000. That's what their net worth should be at average wealth accumulation. If they have $1 million or more, PAW. If they have $270,000 or less, UAW. Try it with your own numbers. Most people who run this calculation get an uncomfortable answer, not because they haven't worked hard, but because nobody ever told them that income and wealth are two completely different games, and that high income can actually make it harder to build wealth if you don't manage the lifestyle inflation that comes with it. Stanley's research found 7 characteristics that appeared consistently in the people who had actually built millionaire-level wealth. Not in the people who looked wealthy, in the people who actually were. Let's go through each one. 1. They live well below their means. This sounds obvious. It is not practiced. The millionaires in Stanley's research weren't just saving a little money. They were living dramatically below their income level. In many cases, their lifestyle looked closer to someone earning half their actual income. Stanley interviewed a man worth $4 million, a business owner who had been quietly building wealth for 30 years. His house was in a middle-class neighborhood. He'd bought it in the 1980s and never moved. His car was a 10-year-old American sedan. His watch cost less than $100. When Stanley asked him why he'd never upgraded his lifestyle as his business grew, the man gave an answer that stayed with Stanley for years. He said, "Every time I thought about buying a bigger house, I asked myself whether I'd rather have the house or what that house would become in 30 years. I always wanted what it would become." He understood something most people never learn. Your lifestyle is not a reward for wealth. It is the price you pay for it. 2. They allocate time, energy, and money efficiently towards wealth building. The millionaires in Stanley's research were not people who stumbled into wealth. They were people who thought about money deliberately. They tracked their investments. They understood their net worth. They set financial goals and reviewed them. They spent more hours per month on financial planning than the average American spends in a year. But here's what's interesting. They didn't find this tedious. For the PAW, financial planning wasn't a chore. It was more like a hobby. Watching their investments grow, finding efficiencies, optimizing their savings, they genuinely enjoyed it. Compare this to the UAW, who Stanley found would often go years without knowing their exact net worth, avoided looking at their investment accounts because the numbers were disappointing, and made large financial decisions based on what they could afford monthly rather than total long-term cost. The PAW thinks in decades, the UAW thinks in months. 3. They believe that financial independence is more important than displaying social status. This is perhaps the most psychologically interesting finding in the entire book. Stanley found two fundamentally different relationships with money. The first group used money instrumentally. Money was a tool for building security, freedom, and independence. Status was irrelevant or actively avoided. The second group used money symbolically. Money was a way of communicating their value to the world. The car, the house, the watch, the neighborhood, all of it was sending a message. The first group quietly accumulated wealth. The second group spent the money they would have needed to accumulate it. Stanley was blunt about this in his research. If you're spending money to tell people you're successful, you're using money that could make you actually successful. He found that many high-income earners were caught in what he called the status trap. They moved into expensive neighborhoods and felt pressure to maintain a lifestyle consistent with their neighbors. Their neighbors, meanwhile, were doing the same thing. Everyone was performing wealth for everyone else, and almost nobody was actually building it. 4. They did not receive economic outpatient care. This section of the book surprised even Stanley. Economic outpatient care is Stanley's term for the ongoing financial gifts and support that wealthy parents give their adult children. Help with the down payment, paying off student loans, covering the grandchildren's private school fees, emergency gifts when the mortgage is tight. The intention is love. The result, Stanley found, was often financial damage. His research showed something counterintuitive. Adult children who received significant financial support from their parents were on average less financially successful than those who didn't. Why? Because the subsidies allowed them to live beyond their means without consequence. A couple living in a neighborhood they can't afford on their own income doesn't learn to budget, they just wait for the next check from mom and dad. And more subtly, the gifts subtly communicated that wealth came from receiving, not from building. The habit of building was never developed because it was never necessary. Stanley called this afflicting the comfortable. Well-meaning parents, in trying to make their children's lives easier, were accidentally making them less capable. The most financially successful children of wealthy parents, he found, were almost always the ones whose parents refused to give them money, but gave them more valuable, the example of how to build it themselves. 5. Their adult children are economically self-sufficient. Directly related to the previous point, Stanley found that the millionaires who would build lasting wealth, not just one-generation wealth, were deliberate about raising financially independent children. They talked about money at home. They gave children responsibilities. They didn't shield their kids from the reality of working, earning, and making choices about how to spend limited resources. One man Stanley interviewed had built a construction business worth several $1,000,000. He had 3 children. All 3 had worked in the business from the time they were teenagers. Real work, real wages, real expectations. All 3 had put themselves through college. All 3 were now running successful businesses of their own. He told Stanley, "The best thing I ever gave my children was watching me build something from nothing, and the best thing I never gave them was the option not to do the same." 6. They are proficient in targeting market opportunities. The PAWs in Stanley's research had an interesting characteristic. They were good at finding underserved markets and positioning themselves in them. This doesn't mean they were entrepreneurs in the Silicon Valley sense. Many of them ran deeply unglamorous businesses: pest control, septic systems, auto repair, commercial cleaning, scrap metal. What they understood was that boring businesses in essential industries run competently and consistently generate more reliable wealth than glamorous businesses in competitive industries. Stanley had a memorable line about this: "The less glamorous the industry, the less competition and the more wealth to be accumulated." The surgeon competing against thousands of other surgeons for high-income patients? The septic system specialist who is one of 3 people in the county who does this work. Who builds more wealth? Often the person you'd never imagine. 7. They chose the right occupation. The final common denominator connects all the others. Stanley wasn't just talking about industry choice. He was talking about the match between occupation and temperament, between income potential and lifestyle expectation. His research found that doctors and lawyers, despite their high incomes, often found themselves on a financial treadmill because their professional culture demands a certain lifestyle. Their peers, their clients, their patients all expect a certain appearance. The pressure to maintain that appearance consumes the income advantage. The accountant who becomes a millionaire isn't doing anything more impressive than the doctor who doesn't. They're doing the same things any PAW does. They're just doing it without the social pressure to perform a lifestyle they can't actually afford yet. Stanley's advice was not, don't become a doctor. It was, understand that your professional culture will create spending pressure and consciously resist it, or your high income will never translate into actual wealth. One of the most quoted sections of the book involves cars, because nothing exposes the gap between looking wealthy and being wealthy more clearly than how people choose their vehicles. Stanley surveyed his millionaire subjects on what they drove. The most popular car among American millionaires at the time of his research? Ford F-150. Not a Mercedes, not a BMW, not a Lexus, a Ford pickup truck. Often used, often several years old. The second most common vehicle? A plain American sedan, bought used, kept for years. Stanley found that most millionaires had never paid more than $30,000 for a vehicle. Many had never paid more than $20,000, and the majority of those were bought used. Meanwhile, his research on luxury vehicle owners showed something startling. The highest concentrations of new luxury car buyers were in the middle and upper middle income brackets, not the wealthy. People earning $150,000 to $300,000 were proportionally the most likely to be driving a new BMW. People worth $5 million to $10 million were the most likely to be driving a 3-year-old American car. Stanley had a theory about this. The person earning $200,000 is trying to signal to the world and to themselves that they've arrived. The person worth $10 million doesn't need to signal anything. They know the number. He tells the story of a man who approached him after one of his lectures, a clearly wealthy man, well-dressed but not flashy. The man told Stanley he had been wearing the same watch for 14 years, a simple Seiko. "I don't need a watch to tell people what I'm worth," the man said. "I know what I'm worth." That sentence, Stanley wrote, summarized everything his research had found. Let me ask you a question that Stanley essentially asks his readers. When you imagine your ideal life, what does it look like? For most people, if they're honest, the mental image involves visible things. A certain kind of house, a certain kind of car, a certain neighborhood, a certain way of dressing, vacations that look a certain way. The image is of appearing successful. And this, Stanley found, is the trap. Because the moment you organize your financial life around the appearance of wealth, you begin making decisions that move you away from actual wealth. You buy the house that impresses people instead of the house that's efficient. You lease the car that signals arrival instead of owning the car that's paid off. You live in the neighborhood where all the other high earners live, which means constant social pressure to spend at their level, which means the money that should be building wealth is instead building an image. Stanley didn't moralize about this. He didn't say it was wrong to want nice things. He simply pointed out that in his research, the correlation between looking wealthy and being wealthy was negative. The more someone spent on appearing wealthy, the less wealthy they actually were. And the more someone seemed indifferent to appearance, living in the modest house, driving the ordinary car, wearing the plain watch, the more likely they were to have millions quietly accumulating in accounts nobody at the dinner party knew about. The neighbor you never suspected. Stanley ends the book with a portrait that I find quietly devastating. He describes a man who lives in an ordinary house in an ordinary neighborhood. He has lived there for 30 years. He drives an older domestic car. He has never worn a watch worth more than $50. His neighbors think he is comfortably middle class, nothing more. He is worth $4.8 million. He never moved to a better neighborhood because he didn't need to. He never bought a luxury car because it didn't interest him. He never wore an expensive watch because he already knew what time it was. His wealth accumulated quietly, invisibly, over 30 years, one saved dollar compounding into 10, 10 into 100, 100 into 4.8 million. Nobody at his neighborhood barbecue suspected a thing. That, Stanley says, is the millionaire next door. Not who you expected, not where you expected, not what they drive or what they wear or what their house looks like. Just an ordinary person who quietly, consistently for decades, chose building over appearing. Thomas Stanley passed away in 2015. He was 71 years old. He had spent 4 decades studying wealth. Not the performance of it, not the appearance of it, but the actual quiet accumulation of it. And in the end, his research could be summarized in a handful of sentences. Most millionaires don't look like millionaires. Most people who look like millionaires aren't. High income is not wealth. Looking wealthy is not wealth. The path to wealth runs directly through the decision to stop caring what your financial life looks like to other people and to start caring what it actually is. He spent 20 years talking to people who had built real wealth, and almost to a person, they shared one characteristic. They were indifferent to financial performance for an audience. They didn't need anyone to know what they were worth. They knew, and that was enough. The question Stanley leaves you with, the one I want to leave you with, is not how can I make more money? It's this. How much of what I spend is building my future, and how much of it is building an image of myself for other people? That ratio, honestly examined, will tell you more about your financial future than any investment strategy, any salary negotiation, any stock tip. Because the data is clear. The people who consistently chose the invisible, the savings account nobody sees, the modest house nobody admires, the used car nobody envies, are the ones who ended up with what everyone claimed to want. They are the millionaires next door. They might already be your neighbor. And with the right choices, starting now, one day, they might be you. The book is The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley and William Danko. First published in 1996. Still as relevant, arguably more relevant than the day it was written. If this video gave you one useful idea, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave me a comment, run the PAW formula on yourself, and tell me where you land. I'm curious, and I read every single reply. Take care of yourselves. See you in the next one.